we start with John Boyle first?
Sorry. Greg, how you doing?
Good.
Just what's it been like, new team in this weird environment where you can't be with the guys in person, just doing these virtual meetings and everything away from the team?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been very different from what I've been used to, what everyone's been used to. It doesn't make it any easier, the fact that you're trying to transition to a new team, a new organization. This is the first new offense I've learned in a long time. So it would have been a lot easier to obviously do this in person. And that was part of what I was looking forward to. I was looking forward to get out there, a couple weeks back and, just get familiar with the area, get familiar with the guys on the team in the locker room. And then, of course, really be able to dive in, on the offense and on the scheme and kind of learn with a little bit more hands-on approach. But, we just wrapped up our meetings. They're doing a really good job. I think we're getting a lot done, considering the circumstances. And, through technology nowadays, you can really have a lot of interaction. You can really have a lot of dialogue, and they're doing a nice job simulating it. So the whole world, I guess, for that matter, is kind of in the same boat. So we're making the best of it. It's not how I pictured it when I signed in February, but it's not just me. There's tons of guys throughout the league that are adjusting to new teams, new cities, and haven't quite been able to get out there.
And to follow up on the virtual meetings, how did Will Ferrell do as Greg Olsen?
I thought he did good. I got to find out who talked to him, because somebody gave him some good insight and some good background research. My core is better than his, which I guess will be good. But I thought it was great. I thought it was really funny. I got a kick out of it. That was a fun introduction to the group.
Greg Bell, the Tacoma News Tribune.
Hello, Greg. Welcome.
Thank you.
What can you detail a little more about what these off-season or these virtual workouts are? Are they going through playbook? Are they going through terminology, film? Are they giving you, do these band exercises, or what exactly do they convey in those 2 hours?
Yeah, all of our meetings has just been installs. So all those things you mentioned, aside from the band workouts, we're doing installs, learning terminology, run game, pass protection, trying to do kind of some virtual walkthrough, kind of simulation type stuff to just get guys engaged, get guys processing plays. They're able to share video so we can watch, cut up some tape from past years to kind of simulate and put kind of a picture with bring a piece of paper to life a little bit and give some context to the play. So as I said, they've done a great job. They've really made this seamless between the different breakout groups and how they've handled the installs and the reviews. It's been a little combination of everything, and I think it's been so far pretty well done.
And why come back now, Greg? Looks like you had an in on a television career, and you're almost starting over at your age, and like you said, a new offense. And why'd you do it? Why choose Seattle instead of your other path?
And this is what a lot of teams ask me, when I got released from Carolina that Monday after the Super Bowl, when I could start receiving calls and start kind of go through a little bit, more deeper dive on what opportunities were out there. I got that question a lot. And the answer I gave the teams is the same answer I pretty much give everyone. I said, if I wanted to go to TV or if I wanted to move on from football, I could have done it 3 years ago. I've been fortunate to have those opportunities, but, this is really what I like doing. This has really been the passion of my whole life. I've done it since I was a kid. I grew up with this game, and I know I can play. I know what I'm capable. I know, what my career, what I've been able to achieve. But there's some things that I still haven't been able to achieve, and that was really my main message to the teams that reached out. And I told them, I said, I'm not just doing this, to collect a paycheck and just extend my career. I've done all that. I'm looking to go somewhere and win and perform at a high level and contribute. And I'm not looking to ruin my career's work by just being a shell of myself in year 14. Like, if I thought that was the case, I would have retired. But I know what I can still do. I know how my body feels. And, there's nothing that I can't do now that I haven't been able to do, years back. And I'm excited to join this group. This organization has been a group that obviously we have had a lot of history with, especially my years in Carolina, but even back my last season in Chicago. We played Seattle and in the playoffs that year when I was in the Bears in 2010. So this is an organization with Coach Carroll and now obviously with Russ and John Schneider. They've put a organization that doesn't go up and down. They're very consistent. You look at the last decade of work, they're at the top of the list. And that really appealed to me. A lot of the traits and the qualities of the Seattle organization were things that I really took pride in and I really valued in my own career. And I just looked at it as too good of an opportunity to not try to join. As far as learning a new offense and all that, I've really enjoyed it. I've been really kind of like re-energized. You don't sit in meetings now after 100 years just looking at the clock waiting for it to get over because you've heard it 1,000 times. So everything I hear now is really the first time I've ever heard it. And there's kind of a sense of newness to it that's been really exciting for me. And I love hearing how other people do things. I love trying to blend maybe what I'm used to and now how they want it done and trying to find how that mashes together. So it's been I've really enjoyed that whole process, and I anticipate enjoying it even more when we obviously can do it in person.
Thank you.
Corbin Smith.
Hi, Greg. You've known Russell Wilson a long time. As you just mentioned, it seems like the Panthers and Seahawks played 1,000,000 times the last 8 years, and Wilson being under center obviously was a huge factor in coming to Seattle. But your other two opportunities that you had, Buffalo and Washington, coaches that you were very familiar with, how difficult was it to turn down the aspect of familiarity there playing for coaches you've already played for? And how much did Pete Carroll really factor into this decision?
I kind of compared it to in high school when you finally are excited that you made your choice of where you were going to go to college. But then my dad made us call all the teams that had been recruiting us and telling them we're not going to come to your school. And those were like the worst part of the process. That was by far the worst part of this process. I have nothing but respect. Obviously, Coach Rivera, and he brought up pretty much the entire staff from Carolina, guys that I really grew in this league under and really had strong relationships with. We achieved a lot together. It was hard to call my old tight end coach, from 9 years in Carolina, and call Pete and say, I'm going somewhere else. That was a tough call. And up in Buffalo, I took a visit up there, and obviously I couldn't have more respect for Sean McDermott. He was a huge part of our success in Carolina early on. And then obviously he got his head coaching opportunity, and the tight end coach in Buffalo was the tight end coach that was my first ever coach in Chicago. He kind of brought me into this league and kind of taught me what the NFL was like. So the only real two guys that I've ever been coached at the tight end position by, one was in Buffalo and one was in Washington. And those were the two teams that, were other possibilities. So those were hard conversations. I really, went back and forth, but at the end of the day, between what Coach Carroll has built here, the consistency, the enthusiasm, every guy that I reached out to and talked to, both on the team now or in the past, everybody said the same exact thing. And everything that I had experienced firsthand from playing on the other side against him and against this group, it really solidified a lot of the, kind of the thoughts that I had about what the organization stood for and what they were all about. And then, of course, obviously Russell is a huge factor into that. I've been fortunate to play with Cam for a long time. Now to go play with, arguably the top guy in the league. I've been very fortunate in my career to play with really talented guys at the quarterback position. And, Russ is obviously at the top of that list. I've really enjoyed working with him, and he's a great communicator and really shares his thoughts and ideas, but he's also very open-minded to, some things that I've done in the past. And it's been so far, a really nice transition. And it's been a really, really nice kind of back and forth between, not only with the players, but, just the entire organization.
Thank you.
Tim Booth.
Hi, Greg. I'm curious what your off-season program has sort of looked like just personally, and how different, obviously it's different than anything of the past, but how different is it for you? And being a veteran that's gone through so many camps before. What's a reasonable amount of time that you think you'll need to get ready for a season once you are allowed to come together as a group?
Yeah, so I mean, unlike a lot of the guys, I've been through this before, with the lockout year, where we just showed up to training camp and it was just roll the ball out and let's go. So I've been used to, training on my own and understanding what it takes to get myself ready for a season for a long time. I think the veterans probably have a better chance to kind of operate in this environment just due to the fact that they understand what it takes. I think some of the young guys that really rely on that structure and really rely on that team kind of holding their hand and saying, all right, here's steps 1, 2, 3, and we'll kind of guide you into training camp and make sure you're ready. I think that's going to be a challenge. You factor in the access to facilities and whatnot. I'm very fortunate here. I have access to really good facilities to train and personnel. So as far as that goes, I really haven't had to skip a beat. The one nice thing is, you can't travel, you can't really do a whole lot. So you have no reason to miss your training. In years past, obviously you have kids and family and, just life going on, and you're always working things out and trying to shuffle your schedule. Now you got nothing else. You have no excuse not to get your work in because you're in a rush to go nowhere. And this has been as good a training off season as I've had thus far. I really enjoy being able to focus on myself and not kind of fall into, sometimes the off season becomes a lot of football and not a lot of training. So in that regard, it's been nice. As far as how much time it takes, I don't know. I don't know. Whenever they tell us to show up for training camp, I'll show up and be fine. And I know if I can do it at 35, the 25-year-olds better be able to do it too, So I'm not worried about that. If they give us a couple weeks of camp, a preseason game or two or whatever, we'll be fine.
Chris Francis.
Thank you, Lane. Hey, Greg. I'm just curious, going back to the Will Ferrell thing, how appealing was it to have a coach like Pete Carroll is willing to do something like that? And I know you've been in a couple stops, so how different is it? We hear a lot about the Seahawks culture, and it starts with Pete. And I'm just curious how cool that was, refreshing it was, especially in the current situation.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I think it made for a fun team meeting. I think the guys really enjoyed it. I think the whole world really enjoyed it. It kind of blew up a little bit, but yeah, I think it's, again, I don't know a ton. I haven't been there, but from things that I've heard, it kind of correlates to what I've heard about the energy and the environment and the culture that's been built. And guys really love playing for the organization, and that's what was echoed to me, and that's kind of what I've kind of figured out from afar over a long time. And again, like I've said, it's been great, experiencing this virtually and from a distance, but I'm excited to kind of get there and kind of wrap my head around it and wrap my arms around it and embrace it and really dive in. But it was fun. I think everyone got a great kick out of it. It was kind of a fun icebreaker. You're meeting an entire team on like a Brady Bunch wall, kind of how I see you guys right now. It's kind of a weird way to meet your new locker room. So it's, I thought it was really fun, and it was a cool surprise.
Joe Fan.
Hey, Greg, just curious where your head's at now going into this year. And I know it hasn't even started yet, but is it basically just a year-to-year thing at this point for you? Do you know for sure in your head this is probably going to be it? Do you say, hey, if I love this, I love playing with Russ, we got some good things going, then, who knows, maybe it could be a 2-year thing. I just, moving your family across the country, I know probably isn't the easiest deal with knowing what the broadcast world has in store for you afterwards. So just maybe curious where your headspace is.
Yeah, my headspace right now is really singular focused. All my time and energy is really about having the best season I can have this year. I haven't drawn any conclusions about what those opportunities are down the road. I haven't put a concrete ending to my career, personally, and I know other people probably have, and maybe some of you have, but my approach is I'm going to go out and try to have the best season I can this year. And both obviously as a team and individually, and what happens after that season, we'll take it again and reevaluate like we have the last couple of years. I think when guys get to my stage of their career, it's really, let's take it one at a time. I think you start looking too far ahead, or you start trying to plan the future too much, and it can really become a distraction. It can really kind of distort it. So right now, I'm trying to be the best player, the best teammate that I can be for 2020. And anything past that, we'll kind of reevaluate next year and go forward from there.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.
Timmy.
Hey, Greg, being the veteran guy in the tight end room and with the times that we're in right now, I mean, how do you go about connecting with some of the young tight ends who have been in the room in previous years and the guys that they added last week during these virtual chat era, I guess, that we live in right now?
Yeah, again, similar to earlier, it's not ideal. You would like to really be around those guys and kind of, feel them out and get a feel for the vibe of the room. That's the room you really spend the most time with. When the season comes around, you maybe have 4, maybe 5 guys. It's a small kind of niche group, but a group that carries a lot of responsibility. So it takes special guys to kind of play that position. And, I've been used to being the old guy now for a while. That doesn't really change much to me. It doesn't change really anything at all. And I was very upfront with the team. I'm always happy and willing to bring along young guys. When I was drafted in Chicago, I had a lot of veterans, both tight ends and other positions, that really looked out for me. They were not afraid. They didn't view me as a threat. They didn't view me as someone trying to take their job. Like, let's help bring everybody along. And those are things that I still feel, those are things that I still cherish today and really appreciate. And at the same time, while I'm going to be an open book and share where I can share and help where I can help, I told the team, don't bring me in if you just want me to be like the big brother in the locker room. Like, I'm here to play first and foremost. Like, I'm here to play. I'm here to perform at a high level and contribute, because I'm a big believer that your voice doesn't really matter if you can't play. And these guys don't care what I did years ago. They want to know, what can this guy do now? And I think the quickest way you can earn that respect and earn that validity in the locker room is by going out and playing and showing them what you can still do. And then the mentorship kind of comes from there. That's at least how I approach it. It's hard to kind of do all that when you're not in person, and they can't really get a feel for me. I can't really get a feel for them. Right now, everything's kind of just X's and O's, coach and install, question and answer. A lot of those relationships and stuff will be built in person once I get out there.
Thanks, Greg.
Curtis Crabtree.
Hey, Greg. Was just kind of curious. Cam's obviously his own unique style of quarterback and athlete in the pocket and such, but how do you anticipate learning how to deal with Russell Wilson's scramble drills and stuff when you're not able to be on the field with him here for a while? And how different do you see the way Russell moves and bounces around in the pocket compared to how Cam would do it? And if you can draw any correlation between the two and how you're going to approach it here.
Yeah, I mean, every quarterback is different. Sometimes there's overlap. Sometimes everybody has their own style, and I don't think that's unique between Russ and Cam as much as it is just the style of quarterbacks across movement perspective and a scramble second play perspective. I think there's a lot of similarities. As far as all that goes, I've always viewed my role as, it's my job to adjust and to see things the way the quarterback sees them. It's not the other way around. I've always believed that. So when it was with Cam, I needed to see things through Cam's eyes, and I needed to make sure I understood what his mind was thinking, where he was expecting me to be, what reactions and things like that were going to happen based on certain situations. And that came with time, and that came with reps. And, we played a long time together and completed a lot of passes together. And I anticipate having that same kind of approach with Russ. And we've had great dialogue, and we've spent a lot of time on calls just talking through things. And I tell him, I say, hey, man, if I don't do things the way you see it or the way you want it done, don't hesitate, because just because I think it's right, if you don't see it that way, it doesn't help anybody. It has to start skill positions to the quarterback first. And then from there can be some back and forth and wiggle room. But, especially as the new guy and kind of adjusting to a system that's been in place, I got to do the best I can to absorb everything the way they want it first. Because I just believe that'll form the reps and the consistency that now you can start to get a feel for one another. And there's a little more natural reaction, a little more kind of just feel on the field. That stuff's hard to talk through. That stuff just happens with reps and experience. And right now, obviously, we don't have that opportunity.
And you mentioned the system there. Is there any correlation to stuff you've run in the past, or is this a brand new kind of playbook idea to you, or how much carryover is there from stuff you've had in Chicago and Carolina?
I mean, scheme-wise, I think a lot of teams in the league run similar concepts. Run game is run game. There's only so many run plays that are run. So from that regard, blocking schemes and techniques and all that is fairly similar. But from a terminology perspective, it's quite different from just what I've been exposed to for a while. Both run and pass games. So again, we're all saying the same words. We're just we're all saying the same thing. We're just kind of using different words, and that's been what I've spent a lot of my time is just being able to make sure that I can communicate. Yeah, I know I got to run 10 yards and break out, but when I come back to communicate with the coaches or the players or whoever, I got to make sure I'm speaking their language, because what I call a 6 route, they don't know what I'm talking about, because that's the language that I've always talked in. So that responsibility falls on me to kind of rewire how I see football and how I talk football so that I can be on the same page with everybody else. That's my responsibility.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Nico Moreno.
Hey, Greg. I was just wondering, in terms of competition in already a group of tight ends with so many bodies, were you surprised at all that Seattle drafted a tight end? And what goes through your mind when you watch the team you're going to pick up a guy in the draft in that same position?
Yeah, I've been around a long time. I've had a lot of guys drafted at my position. I've had guys sign big free agent deals at my position. That's just the nature. That's just the nature of the business. They're always going to try to find young guys. In the NFL, young equals cheap and young equals potential, and old guys, not so much. So I get that. That's never bothered me. I have my approach, and it doesn't matter what team it's on or what player. It's never personal. It's kind of similar to the question I got earlier about how I approach that. If we all do well as a tight end group, we're all going to move forward and we're all going to get better. But as far as how I approach my job, and it has nothing to do with who got drafted or who they are. They're all great guys and we're all on the same team. But I just don't I'm not going to just take a back seat to a young guy and roll over and just say, hey man, you're the future and I'm just going to help you out. It's just not my style. I'm here to play, and I'm going to play every snap until they take me out. Right. And it's always how I've approached it. And that's not going to change now. And then if you don't approach it that way and you just come in and say, hey, I'm just going to carve out a nice little role, you're done. You're out. You got to think, hey, this whole thing is mine until they start pulling the reins back, because we have a lot, as you said, we have a lot of really talented guys in that tight end group. Everybody's going to have a role. Everybody's going to have their plays, their packages. Of course, that's a sign of a good offense, and specifically a sign of a good tight end group. But it's not my job to back out of the way and make room for other guys. That's on the coaches. I got to make it as hard as possible for them to take me out of the game.
Thank you.
Jen Mueller.
Greg, so many of the topics I had on my list have already been covered, but you've talked about having a hard time building relationships when this is how you meet your teammates. I'm curious, what's the thing that your teammates won't fully know or appreciate about you until you're in the room with them?
Oh, that's a good question. The thing I always hope that the guys I've played with, both in the past and hopefully this locker room now that I join, I hope if they say one thing about me, it's when this guy showed up, he really cares. He cares about his teammates. He cares. He takes his job very seriously. He'll hold himself accountable before anybody else. I just think I just hope that everyone sees that. And I think especially when you join a new team, like you don't have any, you haven't been able to stash any credits away. Like everything I do, this will be the first time they ever see me. I've played against them. They've kind of seen me from the other side of the field, but they've never been in meetings with me. They've never been in a workout with me, a practice, whatever. And I'm conscious to know that everything I do, that will be the first time they've ever seen me do it. So I hope they walk away and say, this guy takes his job seriously. This guy cares about his teammates. And this guy's all in to win. And this guy's all in at everything he does. And if they say that, everything else will take care of itself.
I hope that means that you're all in for Techno Thursdays as well with the tight end group. Thanks.
Whatever works. Whatever works.
All right. Last but not least, Bob Condotta of the Seattle Times.
Yeah, sorry about that earlier. Greg, so you're just in Charlotte, right? So do you just every day for these meetings, you just kind of go down to your office and get in there? I just kind of, I guess, wondering just kind of how that works on a day-to-day basis.
I'm in my office in Charlotte. It's not in my house. I have an office space that we run our foundation and some like outside football stuff out of. And it's just a nice place for me to go. It's like 5 minutes from my house. I'm the only one here, and I can really dive in. It's quiet. I have room. I can spread myself out. And it's just a really good place for me to dive in without kids and dogs. I got 3 young kids. I got dogs barking. So I'm sure as a lot of you do. So for 2.5 hours, 3 hours to be able to get away and really dive into what I need to do. This is just a really good setup that I have here. And it's very conducive to learning. It's very conducive to dialing in and focusing. So in that regard, that part's been very easy.
And one other, you mentioned Cam. Obviously, he's still unsigned. Do you have a thought at all on sort of what his future might be or what he wants to do? Or
yeah, I mean, I've been on the record a million times about what Cam has meant for my career and the relationship and the things we've been able to accomplish together over the last 9 years. So it's hard for us who care about him and who have been through so much and know him so well, to see him not signed. Yeah, I think the timing of everything going on in the world and specifically as it pertains to our country and the NFL specifically, with him coming off the injuries was just really not ideal situation. If he would have been released a little earlier, kind of like me, I was able to get out in front, come visit Seattle. Maybe Seattle doesn't sign me if I don't have a chance to go out there and meet them and then see me and do my physical and say, okay, this guy's fine. We like him, feel him out a little bit. Getting released after the lockdown was put in place, I think really limited his chances of teams, A, seeing that he was healthy, and B, just having a conversation with your potential new quarterback. And I think that's been a challenge for him. I just hope that as things continue to open up and life sort of starts resembling some normalcy again, that he can start checking some of those boxes, because he's just too good of a player to not be on a team right now. And, it's hard for so many of us that obviously have seen him up close and personal for a long time. It's hard to, it's kind of hard to swallow, but, we're kind of in uncharted waters right now, kind of weird times. And I think all of those factors have played into the current situation that he's in.
Great. Thank you very much.
Greg, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you jumping.
Thanks, everybody. Looking forward to meeting you guys in person. I'm sure at an open locker room, if that even exists anymore. I don't know. But take care, guys.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you guys. Thanks, Greg.